Welcome to Her Story, the history of Southeast Asia told from her perspective. We'll discover historical figures, matriarchal societies, and contemporary female icons, and maybe learn about ourselves along the way. I'm Agus Ramirez.
Apparently, the train broke down over the Guadalupe Bridge. Service crew found it like this. Lots of blood, no bodies, and a pile of missing persons reports.
Tabi-tabi po.
Greetings, young Trese.
Good evening, Nuno.
There was a time when magic in the world was a natural part of life. That age has passed. People fear what they don't understand. That's why our family has always been the bridge between mankind and the supernatural.
What the hell are we dealing with?
A lot of tribes are on edge, making bad deals with better folk.
That balance you and your father have tried so desperately to maintain is at its end. You're treading on very thin ice, little Trese.
Can't be too sure about the underworld these days.
Please help me.
You are the Babaylan-Mandirigma, healer and warrior.
Ibon yan ang nakatago.
You were born ready.
Hank, the creature is a Chana.
Do you hear it calling for me?
You want my advice? Keep your heads down.
They're coming for revenge.
If the Lakan gets in the way, kill her.
There's something bigger going on here. The tribes need to be united.
The tempest is brewing, and there are liars amongst your allies.
Come on, boys.
Let's put an end to this.
Welcome to the podcast, Kai.
Hello, thank you for having me.
So, you are a student, you are a former molecular biology major, and you're currently a musicology major, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so tell us a bit about yourself, how you became interested in history and comic books.
Well, you see, my father and older brother are also like really big history nerds. So growing up, like a lot of our round table family dinner discussions would revolve around like discussing past and present events, what lessons we can learn, and just really a lot of nerdy discussions. And sometimes we even debate with one another, but it's all for learning. I also grew up traveling a lot. So aside from my usual going back and forth between Japan and the Philippines, we'd also go to other countries, visiting the historical sites, and just generally studying about the country. And as for comics, my older brother got me into most of them. He's like 10 years older than me, so I think our sibling dynamic might be different compared to most, but we're pretty close for the most part, and he taught me so many things.
All right. So, this is the third installment of the episode on the Babaylan of pre-colonial Philippines. And what serendipity that Trese came out last month, giving us even more to talk about. For those who are not familiar, Trese is a Filipino comic series written by Budjette Tan and illustrated by Kajo Baldisimo. It tells the story of Alexandra Trese, a detective who deals with crimes of supernatural origin. So its first issue was published in 2005, and the animated adaptation for Netflix premiered on June 11. So, Kai, you are a big fan of Trese.
Yes,
Hey,
huge
tell,
fan.
tell us about that. How did you discover Trese? What do you love about it?
Let's see. Like with most things, I discovered Tressa because of my older brother. He had like a collection of like the first. I think there were only 3 volumes out at that time, but yeah, after a while, so my brother again, he's like 10 years older than me, so he'd be gone from the house most of the time, so he wouldn't have his collection. So I started like buying my own copies, and eventually I'm really updated right now. So I have like the main series, all 7 volumes, and then I also have like the side stories, the additional art, all that. What I love about is that I grew up, yeah, very historical nerd
Mhm.
type family. So one of my favorite series growing up as well was like Percy Jackson. So I really like the idea of being able to incorporate like this fantasy mythology that's thought to be ancient and putting them in like present day settings, and the fact that it was done in a way with Trese and like Philippine mythology. As a Filipino, it's something that's really interesting and really nice to see for me.
Do you remember when you started reading?
Oh my goodness. I probably around high school.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so that was, I'm about to show my age, but around a decade ago.
I will also show my age. I was about in maybe third year of college.
Oh.
And I remember very distinctly that there was supposed to be this meetup. They were gonna come to UP
Oh
for
yeah.
Sakal. And so I brought all my Trese books and I wanted to get
Oh.
them signed, but they were not able to make it. Manik Sobrera was
Oh
there, but
no.
Budjette Tan and Kajo Baldisimo could not make it. I was heartbroken and I still like telling that story to this day. But anyway.
It's a great story.
Okay, so shortly after the release of the series, your Twitter thread on Trese went viral.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
that's how
surprised me honestly.
that's how I found you actually. So
Thank you.
you talked about the Lakan and the Babaylan and why Trese being a woman is important. So in the series, Trese is a Babaylan-Mandirigma, an appointed spiritual leader and guardian of a city. She was called the Lakan ng Sangkatauhan. So what is the Lakan in simplest terms?
One of the translations of Lakan is like the divine ruler, or in some cultures they would call it God King.
Hmm.
So it's like they're at the very very top in terms of leadership, and they don't just lead the people like physically, like in terms of government and all that. They also lead the people spiritually and in a religious manner. So yeah, I thought that was like really important because like the common misconception is that these positions in ancient in ancient Philippines are only held by men.
Mm-hmm.
That's simply not true. Like there are records of Datu and Raja that are also women. Same with Lakan. There have been records of both men and women holding those positions. But it's especially important that in Trece that she is a woman holding that position, considering our colonial past and what was done to our religious leaders who were female. So yeah, it was that's why I think it's really important.
We've spent some time fleshing out the Babaylan in the two previous installments. So let's talk about the Babaylan as portrayed in Trese by Alexandra Trese. We saw that she was, in fact, carrying out the very important Babaylan role of mediating between the worlds. Um, what did you think about that when you saw? Well, in the trailer, they already mentioned that she was the Babaylan-Mandirigma. As a comic book fan, as a history fan, how did that make you feel?
It was great because again, there's a lot of misconceptions when it comes to Philippine history. Again, due to our colonial past and like just the fact that it's so difficult to study it due to um due to a lot of records being burned. I think I got into an argument with somebody a few months ago who said that so he asked me where the burned records were, and I was like, can you read your sentence again?
They're burned.
They're burned. But yeah, it has been documented by, I can't remember his name right now, but then he went with Magellan during his expedition and he documented the fact that they burned bamboo records. Um so yeah, to see, and then the thing about the Babaylan rule, like I remember when I wrote the thread, I felt like crying while I was writing it because I was
Mhm.
remembering what was done to our ancestors, to the fact that that women were such powerful leaders in our communities back then. They held so much authority, people respected them. And compare it to the way women are being treated now, about
Mm-mm.
how we constantly hear jokes about how, you can just how do you say this in English? How you can just be rude to them without any consequence because that's just their role in society. It's it's very painful to see this kind of contrast. Now, to see the first Filipino animated series have like a lead who's a woman in
Mhm.
such a powerful position, not needing anybody to save her, it's it's such a nice thing. It's such a nice thing to see. Like, feminism has made so many strides over the past years, but I've always felt like certain countries lagged a bit behind in that regard. So seeing this, it was there are just no words to describe the amount of happiness I felt.
When you were watching Trese, were there maybe historical references or folklore references that you wish they expounded a bit more on?
Mm. Less folklore references, but more of some things that I felt were fleshed out more in the comics than they were in the series.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I thought it was a little the second episode, I think it was the one with Kulimlim, with the electricity gods.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It was, yeah. For me, I felt a little vague. The reason they didn't really explain like why he was like accepting sacrifices from people and what people exactly were getting out of it. It wasn't fleshed out much. I thought it was a little. It could have been confusing to those who didn't know the comics, who didn't read the comics. Um, Same thing with when they were getting into Ramona, the rebel
Yes, yes.
who's the mother of twins. I thought it was also a little vague about the how the ritual went, how they summoned the god, the war god. So
Talagbusaw.
Talagbusao, yeah.
Right.
How they summoned Talagbusao. I thought it was vague. They didn't really explain it that well in the series, which I understand because I mean they have to condense it. They have to condense as much plot as possible. But in my head I'm just thinking, oh, it's gonna encourage people to read the comics more.
Hmm. Where are they in the comics now? Would you know how many books there are now?
7 volumes, I believe there are.
7 volumes.
Yes.
So what was your favorite thing in Trece season one? Mine was probably the every scene with San Telmo or Saint
Oh
Elmo's
yeah.
fire. For those who don't know, it's funny because San Telmo is summoned by a Nokia, and we all know how powerful the Nokia is.
Yeah.
So I thought like all their interactions were so funny because the San Telmo was so playful.
It was,
Um,
yeah.
what were your favorite things in season one?
Um okay, it's a very minor detail, but one of my favorite things was that the Sigbin, or the people who were like the bodyguards of Tressa's dad, um I like that they were called Bantay and Puti because in Filipino culture,
Yeah.
those are like two of the most stereotypical Filipino dog names, and
Yeah.
they turn into big dogs. I don't know. I just thought that was so funny and like a really good detail. And fun fact though, they changed how Sigbin look like because they made them more werewolf like also in the comics, but they
Mm.
were originally more like the chupacabra, so more goat like. But
Mm.
then yeah, it's a nice change. There are some regions that have Sigbin to be more dog like, so it's fine. It was fine. I liked it.
What was the name of the son of the Capre? Uh, I forgot his
Um
name.
of the
Tikbalang,
of the
sorry.
Tikbalang, yeah.
Tikbalang, yeah.
Maliksi,
Maliksi,
yeah.
right. I remember in the comics there was a bit of shipping going on between
Yeah.
Trece and Maliksi.
I personally didn't subscribe to it, but I see the appeal, and he's definitely going to appear later on. No
Mm.
spoilers, but he's coming back. He's coming back. For the Maliksi fans there, he's coming back, don't worry.
In your reading, and I know you're very interested in Babaylan history also. Did you feel like there could have been more exposition on rituals? Because something I felt like was a bit missing in the show was I wanted to see a bit more of her spiritual leadership side. There was a lot of
Yeah.
action, but that was good because it's an anime. But
Yeah.
there was an opportunity there. But in the comic books, is there more of that? I don't really remember.
Not that much as far as I can remember. Like it's a lot of in the investigative side, that's where the rituals come in.
Mm,
Though I do like that they were able to incorporate some like sigils during the combat, but I honestly think that there could be a bit more. Though I think I've seen the rituals a bit more in the side stories over
mm,
the main stories. In my yeah, I think if I remember correctly.
mm,
But yeah, they can do a bit more with the rituals because right now it feels like they're just there to add a bit color and there isn't much focus done on them.
mm. Hopefully in season two.
Yes, we should get a season two.
Um, So, Trese, as we've mentioned here, has been such a landmark production for Filipino writers and artists. And because we are seeing these stories as a mainstream anime for the first time. When I first read Trese back in college, it was unthinkable. I would never would have thought that this would be on Netflix. So,
Yeah.
and you're a young artist. What does this Netflix series mean to you specifically?
It shows that one that there's not just like a market for it, but there's a platform for it as well.
Mm.
Because we know that Filipinos that we will eat up anything that has somebody who's even 1/8 Filipino in it, right? So we know there's a market.
Yeah.
But the question has always been who is going to give us an opportunity, who is going to give us a chance. So this just shows that you know, there are people out there who can and will give us a chance should
Mhm.
we just have to fight for it. We just have to keep going for it. So like you would think, especially in the arts, one of the things that parents would tell you is like don't pursue it, there's no
Mm.
money there. But I know it's something that has deterred people for so long, and even me, it's deterred me for so long. There's a reason why I only shifted out of my science course on the last year.
Mhm.
Even though I've always leaned more towards the arts than I did towards science. There's a reason why I didn't shift out until very very late, but this really just shows that we can do this level of production. We can make things of really good quality, and there are people who can and will give us a chance. So yeah, I guess it's more of a lesson for us to like don't stop persevering, don't stop trying, because eventually we'll find an opportunity. And
I'm curious. You're a musicology major.
yes.
How did you find the music in the series?
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Okay. So I'm going to go on a rabbit hole. But okay, first let's talk about the opening.
Yes,
I really really loved the opening. Like I saw a post on Facebook that thought it was a missed opportunity for them to use some Filipino
I
rock
saw that.
song.
Right. I
I
saw that.
honestly got personally offended by that post. Like the not to discredit their work. It was a very good edit,
Mm,
but you are missing the point of the actual intro that's there. The intro it was the opening was made by Kiner Brothers Music,
mm,
and it samples Baluhad Bayaw,
mm,
Bayawen, which is a an Ifugao hudhud.
yes.
And then the reason why, for me, it was extremely important that they chose an Ifugao hudhud to be like a component in the opening. The reason for that is because hudhud are narrative poems that are done in the form of chants. So, like I mentioned, they are traditionally done by the Ifugao community. Now, the thing about the Ifugao culture is that it's based on kinship with the mother, or as you can say, it's a very matrilineal culture.
Mm,
So, in the community, the woman takes the main part in the chants, with her brother occupying a higher position than her husband.
mm,
So, the chants they're often about heroes, laws, religious beliefs, and practices. And as mentioned before, the narrators were mainly women, and they held important positions in their community as historians and preachers. So for me, that choice, that very specific choice of using an Ifugao hudhud, it's extremely important. It already tells you a lot about the series.
Mhm.
So, yeah, and throughout the series, you can hear in the soundtrack, you can hear references to traditional Filipino instruments, to traditional Filipino used in traditional Filipino tunings, because sometimes they won't use the actual instrument; they'll use more modern instruments. But the way the notes that they used are based on the tuning of the traditional instruments. So even there, you can hear the references to Filipino culture, and you can tell that was exactly what they were trying to do. So yeah.
Any other parts of the series that used specific songs or instruments that you would want us to take note of?
Not none that I can think of right now, but I do want to point out that they brought back, they didn't just use the Baluhad Bayawen in the
Mhm.
opening. They also used it later on, right before Trese is about to go to do her trials in the
Mhm.
baleta tree. And it's important that they used it there because the song is generally about someone, a woman specifically, going to a tree, if I remember correctly.
Oh.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
I'm not so sure, but this is just based on like my memory. But if I remember correctly, in that story, so the woman has to go into a tree, and her father wants to go with her but can't.
Mhm.
So it echoed a lot of how Anton Trese has to give this responsibility to his daughter, but he wants to help her as much as he can. He wants to be with her in that trial, but he couldn't. So the most that he could do is literally give her her sister in the form of a weapon.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And interestingly, the balete tree has always been the sacred tree of the
Hmm.
Babaylan.
Yes, it has.
So that all really nicely ties in with, um, and it was also there were a lot of uh, epicos in epics
Yeah.
in Filipino history that have to do with these trials. So
Hmm.
I thought that was a good callback to
It was. It was a really
uh,
good callback.
yeah, like epics that we learn about in school.
Yeah.
What do you hope to see next? Do you want a season two? Are there plot lines
Oh, I
that you want to see?
definitely want a
Yeah.
season two. I can't get enough of Trese. Like until now, like I've actually watched Trese 4 times.
Did you watch
Uh
it in every dub?
Not every dub. I watched it in English, obviously, and
Uh,
Filipino. But
mm,
I also watched it in Japanese because I'm fluent
mm,
in Japanese. And then I watched it in Spanish with my dad because my dad's more fluent in Spanish than I am. I can only like understand.
mm,
And I just wanted to hear the differences in how they were delivered and which dub I liked the most.
mm. Oh, which dub did you like the most?
Oh my goodness, this is a very, it's a point of contention. But
I've only seen the Filipino dub. I didn't even watch the others. So
yeah, I okay. Before I say my answer, I will say that I liked the Filipino dub.
mm-hmm,
Okay. I did have some issues here and there, but
mm,
for the most part, it was good. It was
mm,
good. But I just personally preferred the English dub
mm-hmm,
because aside okay, people who are gonna hear this and like find me on social media might find out, and they probably will find out that I'm a fan of Shay Mitchell. But that is not
oh,
the reason why I prefer the English dub.
mm-hmm,
Shay Mitchell's pronunciations, they left a lot to be desired, but you can hear that she actually put a lot of effort into
mm-hmm,
studying the proper way it's supposed to be pronounced, and I really appreciate her for that. And just generally, the English voice cast was just so good.
mm-hmm,
I just have to, they slightly edge out the Filipino dub, just slightly.
mm-hmm.
It's a very close, it's very narrow. Yeah.
So, are there other myth related works that you would love to see adapted? Because I know people really like Arnold Ares mythology class, which was published maybe like a decade before Trece. I have a
Yeah.
copy, haven't read it
Mhm.
yet, but I have a copy. You're into comics.
Yeah.
What would you want to see?
Oh, okay. If we're talking just related to Filipino myths
Mm,
in that realm, I would personally love to see Francis V. Kuching's Pedro Penduko.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and I feel like it would appeal a lot, especially to like the younger audience, with like a young adult type, you know, fighting, doing like getting into all sorts of shenanigans with regarding to like the mythical creatures and Filipino myths and
I
all
have a
that.
question.
Yeah.
Are you old enough to remember Jano Gibbs as Pedro Penduko?
Oh, yeah, yeah. I know, but that was
I love that as a child. So
yeah. As a child, and then you don't want to watch it again when you get older because you don't want like
to
what you will.
ruin,
Yeah,
yes, to ruin the beautiful memory of
yeah.
Pedro Penduko.
I agree. If we're going into Filipino superheroes, I would love to see the whole Mars Ravelo series
Oh
just
yeah.
make a comeback.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, because like we're in the age where like the MCU is killing it, and the
Mm-hmm.
DCU has been getting better, has been catching up. There are all these superhero related films and shows coming out back to back. I think it would be like a really good time to bring back Mars Ravelo's superheroes.
Who's your favorite Mars Ravelo superhero?
Darna.
Darna. Oh, they're
Darna.
making a new Darna, aren't they?
Yeah. Uh it's I'm not sure how the progress is, but I have hopes for it.
I think it's Jane De Leon who's playing the
Oh, really?
new. Yeah, Jane De Leon's playing the new Darna. Who is my favorite? I remember. I remember liking Captain Barbell when I was.
Oh, yeah.
That was fun.
Very, very fun. He's a very fun character.
Anything else you want to share, or maybe you want to invite our you want do you maybe you'd want to invite the five listeners of this podcast to
um, I mean, I am a part-time Twitch streamer, I guess.
Hmm.
Yeah, I just stream on twitch.tv/ Kaiju Kugel. Mostly play Valorant, so I don't know if people are into that, but yeah, I play Valorant, and sometimes people from my Twitter hop on there to ask me questions, cuz like my Twitter account actually started off as like a comic account
Mm.
centered around one character called Emiko Queen.
Mm-hmm.
She's from DC Comics and the younger half sister of Oliver Queen, who's Green Arrow.
Mm.
Yeah, and since then I've kind of like been known as the thread person. So if you go through my account, like I have so many threads, not just about like Filipino culture but Japanese culture as well, because
Mm.
I'm part Filipino, part Japanese.
Mm.
So yeah, I tend to share a lot about both cultures because I know that there are a lot of misconceptions about Japanese culture because of popular media, and Philippine culture isn't very well known. So
Mm.
I thought of using my platform as like an opportunity to educate and inform people. And I did grow up with an older brother and a father who basically every day you learn something new. Yeah.
Well, there you go. I'm going to link Kai's Twitter account in the description if you want to follow her or ask her any more questions about her favorite dubs. Uh,
Oh no.
oh no.
Oh no.
So that's it. Thank you, Kai, and thank you everyone for listening. We hope that this episode inspires you to take a bigger interest in our history and to create art, vlogs, podcasts, music, stories that will introduce our pre-colonial history to a bigger audience and a new generation. That's it for episode 15.3. I will hear you in a couple of months for season 2, where we will be focusing on Southeast Asia's colonial period. So thank you again, Kai.
Thank you so much for having me.
Producing a podcast like this takes a lot of time and research. If you like what we do, consider joining our Patreon. And if you can't join us on Patreon, just tell your friends about this podcast. That works too. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Her Story CPod. That's Her Story SEA Pod. There are so many more stories to tell, and we're just getting started. This podcast was written, hosted, and edited by Agas Ramirez. Thank you for listening, and I hope to see you again next time. Sampay jum palagi!